All right, so again, our presentation this morning is on 3D via Composer, showing an introduction to it. So we'll kind of start off with the basics here, and I've got a little PowerPoint to help us, truly understand where Composer fits into our documentation process. All right, so I kind of like to think of these days as the CAD department and the engineering department. They have this 3D data that is so essential and crucial to the company, and there's all these other departments around the company that could really take advantage of this data, and they're not today. Again, a lot of time and money has been put into this data, so why not reuse it throughout the organization for more purposes? Now, your company might not have this many departments. In fact, you might have to wear a lot of these hats, but regardless of your organization's structure, reusing the data for all these other tasks could be, very valuable. Here's a couple of companies that are taking advantage of Composer today. A lot of these companies are utilizing Composer to make animations, to further explain their products, from a marketing standpoint or a sales standpoint. A.R. Wolfley here is a local customer out of Denver. They use it for that and for instructing their customers on how to use their product after they purchase it. So maintenance videos and service instructions and things like that. And they're using animations. But a lot of companies are using it in other ways as well. So kind of interactive document like you're seeing here on the left. It's not just a static animation, but the user can pause and rotate the model, zoom in and out, get the angles that he wishes to see, replay a step if in case you missed a step, and then even fill out a questionnaire or a checklist to provide feedback to his manager. And then of course there's the more traditional 2D documentation that we could also create. Now here's the example I'm going to use today. I have this bench grinder assembly, and I need to make just a typical user manual that's going to be packaged with the product. So we're going to print it out, and again, it's just typical work instructions and things like that. But my first task is to set up all those views, all those 2D images for the document. Okay, and actually, let's go ahead and jump into Composer at this point. Okay, and for those of you that are SolidWorks users, you'll notice my interface looks a lot like SolidWorks. Okay, in fact, it's got the same exact look and feel and interface setup. Okay, and my first step is go ahead and open up my SolidWorks model. Now, I shouldn't just say SolidWorks because really it's CAD neutral. Okay, we can open up CAD files from any program, and not just CAD files, but also graphic files. So in case you're wanting to use models, 3D models from some program, you'll definitely be able to use those. Okay, after I grab, maybe my SolidWorks assembly, I might want to pick a certain configuration. So Composer does support configurations. Okay, and maybe we want to come in and grab the default configuration here. Okay, and then we'll just import this into Composer. So it is creating a new file. Okay, and I think that has several advantages. One advantage is now I'm not tying up a license of SolidWorks. So the engineers can have their SolidWorks, and then whoever's going to do the document can have his own file as well. We're not stepping on each other's toes. And that allows us to work in parallel. Working in parallel is definitely going to speed up the whole documentation process. Okay, but I do get all the CAD geometry. So you'll notice I am in 3D. I can select individual components, sub-assemblies, things like that. If you look over here at the left, I have the exact same assembly structure that the engineer intended me to see. Okay, so I can come in here and grab, dive into the different sub-assembly levels and see how things were organized. Okay, part names come over, everything. Okay, if we grab a specific component and look at its properties, you'll see that there's all kinds of graphical things I can change really quickly about this body. Okay, and I don't have to have any, artistic or graphic, background to work with it. Everything is slider bars, like changing the opacity, changing the color, things like this, shininess. All these different visual effects are just pull downs, slider bars, check boxes. So it makes it really easy to manipulate the graphic the way you want. Okay, so you'll notice that the colors and then visual properties come over from SolidWorks. And then lastly here, metadata. Okay, and I think this part is really huge for me. In the past, I would need to go bug the engineer for this information. I need to figure out what material it is, or what part number it is, or all these different things that I might want to put into the illustration. Okay, now I want to go ahead and return this part back to how it started. So I can grab its original color, opacity, shininess, and tell it to go back to how it originally looked. That way, again, I don't mess things up. Okay, I can always return things back to their defaults. Okay, so let's say we set up an angle or a view that we like here. I just go ahead and take a snapshot. So that snapshot is now ready to be saved out into my Word document whenever I'm ready. Okay, in advance, I went ahead and laid out the Word document the way I want it. But you'll see I don't have any pictures for it yet. And so I want to kind of put together a parts list, some caution views, a wheel replacement guide, show them how to take it apart, and then some kind of cover image. Okay, so this will be my cover image eventually here. I haven't put any special effects into it yet, but we'll wait and do that later. Okay, so now we'll go ahead and move on to removing the grinding wheel. Okay, so first step, they got to take apart all these screws. Now, I don't want to have to click all those little screws one at a time. There's a lot of them there. Okay, so what I can actually do is use my advanced selection tools. Okay, maybe I would like to grab just that specific size of screw. Notice how it highlighted just those 10 screws for me. Okay, but actually I want to grab multiple pieces of hardware. So I could actually do maybe a select by color. Again, chances are your hardware is already the same color, especially if you're using SolidWorks Toolbox. So notice how it grabs all my hardware really fast. Okay, now I can use some different visualization tools to show off all the hardware. I'm going to use this ghost view here. I kind of like it. Notice how I could quickly highlight all the hardware in the entire assembly to my user so they get to see it and know where everything is. You get the context of where that hardware goes and what it's holding together, but the focus is really on the hardware. So it's kind of a cool little advanced image there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab all that hardware again. Notice how I had to repeat those clicks. Okay, there's actually a better technique. Okay, what I can do here is create selection groups. It's kind of like creating a sub-assembly. We can quickly grab all the parts in the sub-assembly by grabbing the sub-assembly itself. But without having to mess up the assembly structure, I can create a group of parts called a selection group. Okay, and I'm going to name those hardware. So now later in the future, if I want to grab all that hardware again, I can just go to my selection set and get it in one click. Okay, this time I'm going to go ahead and hide all the other parts. And I'm going to get to an angle I like here, and I'm going to start hiding a lot of this other hardware out of the view. Okay, just one button click, I can hide parts that I don't want. Okay, and really what I'm trying to do is dive down into these screws and washers here. Okay, now that I can grab them, I'm going to create another one of those selection sets. Okay, and then call those pan heads right. Okay, and you'll see why. Okay, now I can use that previous thumbnail I saved to quickly return the view and orientation back to how it was. So really powerful to be able to do that, to save these scenes, as I like to call them. Okay, now that I'm back to my starting scene, we use our selection set to grab this hardware again. Okay, and now we could translate it out. Okay, Composer has a lot of advanced selection tools like this, or I'm sorry, explosion tools. Okay, I can grab all of those. Okay, and now that I've pulled off that cover play, I realize we can slide this hardware back a little bit. Okay, so that's going to be the first step to removing the grinding wheel. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and capture another snapshot or another scene. Okay, and then we'll hide these components and move on to the next view. So you can see how quickly I can jump from one view to the next view with very little effort, very little work. You know, it's very difficult to do the kind of stuff I'm doing right now in a CAD program. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and jump to the transformation toolbar that I have. Notice all the tools I have to creating exploded views a lot quicker. Okay, so for a technical document that's going to have several exploded views, it's nice to have more than just one set of tools like we're used to in our CAD program. Notice how I'm quickly able to fly out all of those components. Okay, but then maybe I want to slide that subassembly back a little bit. And again, now I've got the third view already set up and created. Okay, so I can move through these really quick that way. Okay, next I want to restore these back to where they were. Again, just a couple button clicks, I can do that. Or of course I could have just jumped back to our original scene. All right, next maybe I'd like to put together a parts list. Okay, so I'm going to grab just these components, say show just this selection. Okay, and we'll blow up some of these parts. Okay, notice here I can't get the explode angle I like. Well, if I grab just one screw, I do get the angle I like. It orientates itself to the part origin. So I could pull that screw straight out of the model, a lot faster and easier. But now I want these same two screws here to do what that first screw did. Well, I've got a command for that in Composer. Okay, it's called copy transformation, and I can tell it to do the exact same thing that that first screw did. Notice those second two jumped right to where the first one was. And now I'm going to have to do the same thing that I did earlier, but with those nuts. So if I grab one nut, I got the orientation I like, and then I grab the second two and say copy the transformation that the first one did. Okay, and now I just realized that I had actually two washers and I took them the wrong direction. Okay, so I'll grab those and say copy transformation back to these screws. Notice they put themselves back on those screws. Okay, and now we could maybe just slide one of those off. So that copy transformation tool helps me really align components out of space while I'm doing my exploded views a lot better than previous techniques. I like to slide this guard back up a little bit and maybe this bar out a little bit. There we go. All right, so that view looks pretty nice. I will want some exploded lines here in a little bit, so we'll get back to those though, and we'll go ahead and capture another view. Next, I've got those warning images. So I want to make everyone aware of where the motor's location is, so they don't, stick a screwdriver in there or something, or if they need to get to the motor to repair it or get it serviced, they know where it's at. So it's down into the middle of this assembly, though. What I can do is I can start pressing tab and dive down into the guts of the model. Another way I can do that is pull up my digger tool. Okay, you'll see at first here it's just a nice, handy magnifying glass, which could really help me, show someone where the screw is that I'm looking for. But like in our case, I can actually pull it off to the side and attach it to a location in the model and then put it in an X-ray mode. Notice I can actually dive down into the guts of the model and find that interior detail that I'm looking for, like maybe a motor. Okay, if I was trying to grab it that way and then translate it out, I could do that. Notice he has now moved out of the model. Okay, so that's another kind of cool, handy tool here to help illustrate details internal to the model. Okay, what I'm actually going to do is grab my motor here, and let's see. Okay, I'm going to highlight those pieces, and then I want to create a detail view. Well, I don't actually have to set up a scene for this. All I got to do is highlight them and then pull up one of my workshops. Now I've got a whole lot of workshops that help expedite certain tasks or improve or enhance image quality, things like that. Okay, but all I'm going to do in this one is create a nice high resolution, colorful detail view. Again, all I had to do is pull up the workshop, highlight the parts I want, and click a button. Okay, it's already done. I can now close this workshop. Okay, you'll see I've got that nice little motor, or nice little call out showing me where the motor is. And again, we're going to add some enhancements to this image to make it a little bit better later. But right now I'm just setting up my views, setting up my scenes, or my storyboard, if you will. Okay, one last scene here. I want to pull in some additional components here to set up the scene. Okay, so what I can actually do is browse to models that I found online. So I can go online, to a couple different online libraries. The customer portal has one. Through SolidWorks. Anywhere I find a 3D model, I can now bring these in as props. So here I've got a pair of safety glasses. Okay, we can grab this 3D geometry and import it into the current document. Then once it's in here, it can now be part of my scene. That's actually another enhancement that they added to this version, is it comes with a library of screwdrivers, wrenches, hands that you can put in different positions, showing, grabbing something or pinching something, all kinds of different things. So here I got a pair of eyeglasses. So I can move these up here. We'll move those up in space, and then maybe even make that the new neutral position. Okay, but now I want to hide the bench grinder and show my safety glasses. Again, I want to make sure my users know that they need a pair of safety glasses before they operate our grinder. Okay, so I'm going to do another detail view, but this time we'll do it a little bit differently. I'm going to make it more of a line art, black and white, vector image. Okay, if I grab my component, I can do an auto fit. Notice how I did not need to resize my bubble. It resizes itself. Again, all I got to do that is grab a component and hit the auto fit command, and then create. So now I know it's nice and centered, and I get the line weight and line styles that I choose. Okay, and again, I could customize those and do a lot of things here to make those look nice. In fact, there's one thing in there I didn't like. For instance, I like the shadows, but I want to turn off the shadow line. Okay, now I can create another instance of that detail view. Can you see it got rid of that extra line on the model? Again, now we'll close this workshop. Maybe change some of the properties here. I don't want that tooltip, and we'll hide our glasses. So again, we'll set up our next scene here, get this where we like it, put that safety image on here. I've got another image library, if I remember where I put it. Give me a second. I'll see if I can browse to it quickly. If not, we won't worry about it. Again, here I've got a couple other, a couple buttons that I've made in the past. I'm not finding the library, though, that I was looking for, so with the warning symbol. But we'll go ahead and just leave these safety glasses here. Call that good. And we'll take another snapshot. All right, so in just a matter of minutes, you'll notice that we were able to create all the views that we wanted for our Word document. So it's fast and easy creation, but the true power and the true value we're about to see. Again, it is much faster to do this in Composer because it's intended for this task. But this next task would be virtually impossible in a CAD program or something else like that. So again, we're able to easily reuse our 3D data to set up scenes, to set up our images. Now let's go back in and add our special effects. Okay, so first let's jump to our cover image here. Again, the model looks pretty nice, but I kind of want to jazz it up since it is the cover image. Okay, so first thing I could do is start playing with the backgrounds. Okay, maybe I want to try out some different lighting schemes. That one looks pretty nice. This one's got some good contrast. So I could try out a lot of different lighting schemes, and I kind of like this first one, to be honest. And again, I could play with kind of the light intensity if I notice it's a little too dark. I want a little more shine on it. Do a little more advanced calculations on the shading and the shininess. Add some shadow effects. Again, maybe a little bit of dark shadows in the the hard to reach areas of the model. Okay, some ambient occlusion. Notice again, you can see a little darkness in there behind the cover, where light would have a hard time getting in. And let's see, let's turn on the ground and some other effects. Here I don't really want the grid, but I want a mirror effect, okay, like it's on a glass table, and then maybe the shadow. Okay, and now that I've got the ground turned on, I can mess with the ground properties. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't need that artistic skill anymore. Maybe you do have a graphics artist on staff, but if not, it's not that hard to manipulate this and get what I want. So if I want to turn down the intensity of the mirror, make it blurry, soften up some of the shadows so they're not so intense. And again, I kind of like the way this is going. And maybe I try out some other views, something like that. And then I'll update my snapshot. So again, I could come back and update these views later, after we review the document with the manager, or we discuss images, or maybe the CAD models update. Next, I want to go back to this view and show some explode lines and some more information about taking this apart. Okay, with Composer, I can just grab parts and tell them to draw their own explode lines. And the explode lines are intelligent. If I ever decide to move a part later, let's say I started jogging the screw up or down, notice how the explode lines change and update. They grow, they shrink, they move to compensate for the new position. So those lines are intelligent. Okay, next, I don't really like the way these lines look. They're kind of big and bulky, and they don't look 3D yet. Now they are 3D. Notice I rotate around. They're always in the right positions, but they don't have that kind of 3D feel to them yet. Well, I just grab those lines and now I can manipulate them. And maybe we'd like to reduce that line weight, and the stay on top is what's going to make them look like they're 3D. They're actually going through the hole. They're on top of that model. Okay, the last thing I don't like is the handles or the extremities here. I want those to be a little bit smaller. There we go. So there's just some nice explode lines here to show how to take those screws apart. And then we'll update this view. Now, this next view, I'm also kind of showing things come apart, showing some motion. But here I'd like to do it a little differently, maybe with some arrows. Okay, now in PowerPoint or whatever program you might be using today to kind of set up your views, you could probably do some arrows. Okay, but they're not 3D. And the real pain there is when later you decide you don't like the angle or the zoom. Now I'm going to do it kind of like I would in PowerPoint by just 2 left clicks on the screen. Okay, yes, this arrow looks 3D, but what happens later when I decide I want a different angle? Okay, it doesn't look good anymore. Now I've got to waste more time trying to get the arrow back. And this, again, is an iterative process. You might have to do a lot. So here's a better way, a 3D arrow. Okay, I can just have that arrow snap to the screw. Okay, and then just, choose some length for it. But later, if I come up with a different view, oh, I did not attach to the center hole. Let's try that one more time. Now later, if I decide I need a new angle, the arrow is always good. So eliminating that rework is going to cut down on costs and updating the document in the future. Okay, maybe we slide that arrow back a little bit. But later, if we decide we want to pull the screw out, okay, the arrow knows he belongs to the screw, and he's going to follow that screw, or I'm sorry, that nut wherever he goes. Okay, a couple more adjustments I'm going to do to this arrow. Again, I just highlight my arrow, come to the properties, and now I can make changes. Okay, I could turn the gradient on and off, flip my arrow the other direction. Okay, we could change the size of the arrow. And then, of course, give it that 3D feel, like it's actually going through the parts. Okay, we can do the same thing for circular arrows or jogged arrows. Okay, again, they automatically snap to model geometry. And maybe I want an arrow showing the direction they need to loosen that screw up. And we could change the size, come over here and mess with the properties. Maybe we want to change the width. And again, give it more of a 3D look. Okay, now it looks like a ribbon wrapping around that. You might spin it around the other direction here. Okay, again, we'll give that arrow a different look and feel. And if we like that, we'll go ahead and update our snapshot. Okay, now to bombs and parts lists. We already learned earlier how fast we can blow things up and get our exploded views created. We also took a look at adding trail lines and things like that. Okay, but what about actually creating a parts list or a bill of materials? Okay, I've got a workshop designed specifically for this. We'll pull up our bomb workshop. Maybe we'll even draw in some trail lines and things like that. Okay, notice they went back to that same default style. That's because I'm using the default styles that came with the program. Now, if I have a personal preference that I use every time, I can change that in my template. But you might have several different styles you like. We have a styles toolbar, okay, where you can save all of the options that you've chosen before, like maybe certain explode lines and things like that. Yeah, let me go ahead and grab my explode lines. Where are you? Okay, here's all the explode lines in this view. I can quickly highlight them all, and then choose one of these other styles. Notice I have a couple different styles here. Okay, now some of these I might not want to jog like this. Okay, notice how they're jogging in X, Y, and Z space, but we exploded at an angle. Well, that's just another property I can change. Okay, real path, and notice those went back to more of a diagonal setup. Okay, so I've got a tree here to quickly grab all of my my annotations and things like that. So I can find those real easy. I don't have to control select things like we're used to in CAD. Again, they're all organized in a tree. Makes it easy. And I only want to grab these to, again, reduce those attachment points. Okay, now we've got our explode lines in there. We'll generate our BOM. All you got to do is highlight some parts, generate BOM IDs, create some callouts. And you see how quick and easy that is. If I've got a lot of BOM flexibility here, I can create as many BOMs in one given document as I want. So a lot more flexibility than your CAD program, a lot more options, as you can see, to customize. So just really robust tool here for creating parts lists. Okay, I'm going to scroll through some different layout options. Again, kind of helps me place them in a nice logical place given my document. So I kind of want them on the top and maybe the left here. But notice as I kind of shift things around, those balloons are smart enough to move to better positions, okay, given the orientation of the parts. And so maybe we're going for a view kind of like this. Okay, now those attachments look pretty nice, and so we'll kind of turn off the auto switching behavior. Okay, lastly, we'll throw on our BOM table. We might want to make it a little bit bigger, something like that. And again, a lot of formatting options for that, of course. That's looking pretty good, so we'll call that good and update our view. Okay, so I'm pretty much ready to save out my content. Again, so you saw a lot of special effects that I added. There's a whole lot more I didn't get to, but don't really have time, so we'll kind of move along. But adding enhancements that are normally really hard in other programs or require something like Photoshop, now we can do directly on the model. And now I'm going to output some content. Okay, this step's really quick and easy. And here's one option for outputting content. Okay, a technical illustration. So this creates a vector graphic, and if you're not familiar with that, it's an image type that can be scaled up and down infinitely, and it doesn't lose quality because all the lines are vectors. And this particular image type could be viewed in pretty much any browser. So, all your customers or whoever, again, you're going to try to show this image to, the shop floor maybe, they're going to have the ability to see it and read it. But it's not just a simple view. Now, notice again, it has a nice, clean look. Definitely looks better than a wireframe image. It's got more depth and feel to it. But it has intelligence. Notice the BOM automatically highlights the parts on the screen, and then vice versa. So imagine you're trying to create a training document for new employees. They don't know the names of the parts yet. Now they can get familiar with the product just by hovering around, learning the names of things. And again, same thing with your customers. Okay, on top of this, we could even set up links. Let me show you just an example that I've created in the past. And chances are your assembly has sub-assemblies to it. So yeah, you get the highlighting and things like that, but if you click on a sub-assembly, it'll actually dive down layer by layer until they finally get to that sub-assembly they're looking for. Okay, and then they could go through and highlight things and do all that, and then if they want to jump back, they just use the browser's back button. They can get back to the top level and check out a different sub-assembly. So it's definitely kind of a cooler way to learn about all the parts. All right. Now, most of these images, though, I'm wanting to dump into my Word document, so I'm just going to create some JPEGs. We'll move over to another way of outputting images, just the typical ones we're used to, JPEGs, TIFF, bitmaps, PNGs, things like that. Here I definitely want high resolution images. I would like to have a nice white or transparent background. That way I can overlay text on the document and overlay images on each other. Okay, and then I also don't want to save out every image. Chances are, in real life, I don't have just 6 images. I might have 100 images. Again, more images is better, less text. That's kind of the idea. Let's put less text in here and a lot of images. Well, I'm going to want to batch save those. So we'll just turn on the batch save option. And then we'll save directly over the original images. Okay, that way my Word document will update automatically. Okay, if we pull up the Word document, tell it to go ahead and refresh the links. And we link to these images, just hit update, and now they're all in here. You can see here's my cover image, my exploded views, my parts lists, and then my 2 warning images. All right, so a great way to output our content in a very traditional format. So whatever tool you're using today, you get to continue to use that tool to do your layout and your word processing and things like that. We're not going to try to take away a tool that you got that you already like. Composer kind of sits in the middle and helps you get the graphic to your final document. Okay, we'll get back to some other ways of outputting content a little later. Okay, but now the inevitable happens. We get an email from the engineering group. There's been a design change. So in a traditional process, we would now have to throw all of our images away and start over. Okay, a terrible waste of time, and not very efficient process. Well, here's one of the biggest values of Composer. I'm going to update all my work in a matter of seconds. Okay, so we'll jump back into SolidWorks actually, and I'm going to pull up this document so we can see the new change. So you notice it's the same bench grinder from earlier, but now there's been some slots put into it, for ventilation. There's been a power switch added, okay, which makes sense. We need to turn this on and off. And then maybe a couple ribs to prevent someone from hitting the switch on accident. Maybe it's for strength. And there might be several changes in the model. And chances are, whoever created the document doesn't know about all the changes either. Okay, so whether you're using Enterprise PDN to notify changes and control updates, or whether you're just doing it manually, all your Composer user has to do now is go to File, Update. Okay, point back to the same SolidWorks model. Okay, and then hit the Update button. That's it. Actually, I think I need to close this here first. Okay, so we'll hit Update, and then in just a matter of a couple seconds, it'll add any new components that have been added to the model, like the switch. It'll remove any old components that aren't here anymore. And it'll change all the geometry that is in there, like the ribs and the vents. So you notice now the update's done, all the new geometry and parts are in here. Okay, but if I jump back to my cover image, it's already up to date. If I jump back to my warning image, it's already up to date. Everything's already up to date. If I had an animation, maybe I created some animation video, it's already up to date. The only thing you need to do to update our Word document is to redo our batch save. So I just go right back to Save As, hit Save. Okay, it's done outputting those images, so we jump back into Word and tell it to update our links. And so right there, something that used to take a week, I just did in literally a minute. My document's up to date. So there's the true power. We're all used to our engineering drawings having this power, that associativity. The model changes, the engineering drawing updates. But we're not used to it with our technical documents. But now we can be. Okay, bring that power to our technical documents. Okay, so we had a parallel workflow. We didn't have to wait for the final design to be done to start the document. We could start it early, get the technical document done early, and then when an update does happen, it's no big deal. We just push the update through. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up just showing off the Animator a little bit and some other interactive options. Okay, so I haven't started an animation yet, but what I can do is use my 2D views that I've already set up and I like to start my animation. Okay, just dragging and dropping views onto the timeline. Okay, I can set up my storyline. Okay, so now my animation certainly is not complete, but by hitting play, you can see I'm already off to a good start. Okay, so I need to do maybe a little bit of cleanup. I can rewind, and maybe I don't like the lighting or something. Okay, we could change our lighting scheme. Okay, it looks like this one screw is fading away a little faster than I like, so all I got to do is grab them, and I can figure out why with my filter. Okay, so you'll see right here is where he's supposed to start disappearing, but for whatever reason he started a little early. So all I got to do is up his opacity, at different keyframes, and now that changes in there. Okay, but here's what I really like about this animator. I can kind of play things back at my own speed, and I realize that there's not enough time here to do what I want. So I can highlight empty time and push the other events back and make room for what I'm about to do next. Okay, here I want to throw in some call-outs, but I don't want to have to look up these part names. Notice I don't have to. The call-outs automatically link to the SolidWorks metadata. I could grab these callouts and control which metadata they link to. Like right now it's the names, but maybe I'd rather have the part numbers. Okay, and now those fade in with the part numbers. Okay, and things are about to start moving on me again. I'm kind of running out of time. Well, all I got to do is slide these keys back, and I've got more time. Maybe that's too much time. Okay, next I can hold control, copy keys to kind of invert the task. So first they fade in, they stay up, and then they fade back out. And then the next explosion happens. Okay, so maybe right about here I would like some additional labels. And just like before, we might link those to the part numbers instead. And then I like those to stay up for a little bit and then fade back out. Okay, maybe I'm showing a grinding wheel replacement. Okay, so my customer orders a new grinding wheel. So I'm going to come to my 10-second mark here, grab my wheel, and then I would like it to blink. Okay, I can create this hot spot effect and then copy that effect over and over again for however many blinks I would like. Maybe I would like it to blink 4 times. If we play it back, again, it's really grabbing my customer's attention. Okay, but now I want to speed up the blinks. I can grab them all and speed them up. Okay, maybe that was a little too fast. I can slow them back down. And then maybe I'd like it to happen sooner. I can move that event forward in time. So the time management capabilities here are really powerful. Again, I just found a mistake. My callouts faded into view a little quick. So again, we'll just grab them, filter to them, and I notice I'm missing the one key here. I can just let auto keys replace that key back for me. Okay, now if I play it back, those callouts come in at the appropriate time. Okay, and then we'll finish it up by maybe translating the wheel off the screen. Oops, forgot to move my time bar. So we'll let it spend half a second moving off the screen. And then maybe the new replacement wheel is a different color. So I'm going to grab its current color, change it to maybe it's a red. And then I want it to come back into position. Okay, they'll play that back. Okay, and now I've got that red disc. So yeah, now it goes off screen, it comes back red. And we'll move our timeline until the parts go back together. And we'll call that good for our video. So I didn't do a terribly long animation, but in about 5 minutes I put together a 15-20 second animation, which is incredibly fast. To outsource something like this, it probably would cost a couple $100 to just get that. And then if we wanted any changes, that's another couple $100. So to be able to make as many changes as I want and add as much detail in this animation as I want, because I have the tool and the capability on my machine is just huge, rather than outsourcing animations. A picture's worth 1,000 words, but an animation's worth 1,000 pictures. So I can get so much information across. I can create so many animations quickly. It really helps to elevate our documents. Now, how do I output this and give it to my customer? Well, I have a lot of options. I can save out a traditional video, and I can, compress it, or I can make it an AVI or a Windows media file or an MP4 or whatever you want, whatever you're going for. But we also have some interactive 3D options. Okay, and for my interactive 3D, I'd probably want to put some navigation tools so my customer can jump from view to view, things like that, or even play my animation. I'm going to grab those buttons. I want those buttons in all my views. Again, Composer's all about quick updates. Notice 2 clicks. Every view now has navigation buttons. And then lastly, we'll save this into some interactive 3D format. Okay, Composer gives you a lot of options here. I can take the free player, which anyone could download, and package it into the file so nobody has to download it. They just double-click it. That's a great option. Publishing it straight to the web, or maybe putting it into HTML format so our web developer can put it on our website. And then lastly, a 3D PDF. All great options. We can password protect the model. We can skew geometry, control what the user can do and can't do, even put an expiration date on the file. So kind of a Mission Impossible feature there. The file could self-destruct when you want it to. That way, again, the end user isn't holding on to your data for too long. And then we have some nice different output options, different formats. So we'll go ahead and save one of these to our desktop. Take a look at it. It takes a little bit to save out this data, but it's almost done. All right, again, notice I'm using Internet Explorer to view the model. Okay, but again, it's not just a dumb picture on our website anymore. People can go to our website and then start rotating our models around and use all the functionality that we saw earlier, like tabbing down into the center of the model to find details, highlighting parts to figure out their names or their metadata. Okay, and then, viewing an animation or something like that. Again, hitting play and watching our animation come to life. But then to be able to, when they have a question, hit pause, rotate the model, get a better look and understanding of what's going on, and then when they're ready, hit play again. All right, so again, I'm going to wrap that up and call it good. Again, that's a great first look at 3D via Composer. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a lot of questions. Please send your questions to info@mcad.com or brendan@mcad.com, and we'll be happy to help them or answer them for you. And then we'd also love to come out and see you guys and do a more in-depth look at Composer, take a look at how Composer could work for you. And we can even show you examples on your models. That way you can really see the value. So just give us a shout, and we'll definitely come and show it off for you. So thanks again for joining us, and that's it for our webinar. Goodbye, guys.